if you go on a date...
Oh? Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great.
Today, for the very first time, I'm going to be sharing my story of why I went to prison. Now, if you follow me across social media, you've probably heard small snippets of my prison experiences, maybe going through my court proceedings, adolescence life, whatever it may be. I've never fully shared across my social platforms my entire story. So today, for you, I'm going to be sharing my story from adolescence to incarceration, now to walking the runway, working as an actor, and the host of After the Gate podcast. So if you haven't already, you guys, please smash that subscribe button below, as well as hit the bell to turn on post notifications so you can stay up to date with all of our drops. Let's get into it. So my story really begins at my adolescence and where I grew up. I was born July 31st, 1991 in Hanford, California, and that is the Central Valley. So many crazy statistics come from this place of just being like an undereducated and just place where people really don't get out and grow. I can say that my life trajectory, if I would have stayed there, seems like it would have been a lot worse had I stayed in the Central Valley. But my parents relocated in 2005, took our family from the Valley and moved to Minnesota. But growing up in California wasn't bad. It was, you know, for me and my family, it was the suburbs life. We lived in a specific neighborhood called Pine Castle. You know, our life centered around my two working parents. I was the middle child, so I have a younger brother, older brother, and obviously my parents had their hands full with three boys. I had my older brother to look up to and like follow throughout my adolescence years, and anything that he was interested in, I was interested in. He wanted to be a baseball player. I want to be a baseball player. He wanted to play football. I want to play football. Whatever it may be, I was following in his tracks, right? So eventually that led up to skateboarding. Him and his friends kind of found that as an outlet to do. And they even had like a little skate crew called the Crumb Bums at one time. And like, I thought it was so cool, just this like camaraderie of coming together and a skate crew, a skate family, like whatever you call it. Skateboarding was so unique to me in the sense that like everybody was accepted. It doesn't matter what you look like, how you talk, what you say. You know, everybody understands a 50-50 grind, a board slide, skateboarding, rolling, that feeling. So skateboarding was like early on as a kid, I grasped onto it and I wanted to excel so much in it. So I spent day in, day out across, you know, across the street from my family's home. Growing up, my childhood home, there was a, you know, like a street light and just a corner that like went around the neighborhood. And I would stay skating underneath that street light all night until my mom would be yelling, "Come inside." It was like leading up to that point of me choosing skateboarding to be this like hobby that turns into a career. At the age of 13, 14 years old, I picked up a sponsorship. In the town of Hanford, California, there was a skate shop called FRC. So I went to the skate shop, told this guy, "Hey, I want to ride for you." You know, I'm 13, 14. He's like, "Whatever, you know, let's go outside and let's play skate. Let's see how you skate." So I played him skate or whatever, and it was cool. And I lost. I didn't even win. I just showed him some of the tricks that I could do. And the owner of the shop, FRC, after we played skate, said, "Come on inside." And he said, "Pick any skateboard you want off the wall." And I was like, "What?" As a kid, this was so crazy. So I picked a skateboard. I remember it was a green Baker skateboard with this block white lettering. And it was just so surreal for me to be picked up and sponsored that day, right? He's like, "You know, you're riding for the shop now. You're a sponsored skateboarder for FRC and you represent us." That whole night, right? I went home. I think it was even my birthday, the day that I got sponsored. I went home. There was a party going on in the backyard for me or whatever. When I showed up, my mom and my dad were like, we're, "Hey Alex, what's up? How's it going? Happy birthday." And I showed them the skateboard. I was just so excited that like, this is amazing. I'm sponsored. I was so happy. And all night I kept waking up, looking across my room, and I had the skateboard put up on the wall. And it was like, it's real. I kept touching the skateboard. I was like, it's real. This is so insane for me. And that's what skateboarding was for me growing up. I think it was that outlet that kept me out of trouble, kept me out of like the poor choices that could have led my adolescence into like, you know, early juvenile hall or getting in trouble at school, which I would get in trouble in school, you know, a few little things throughout like middle school and then into getting kicked out of high school. But I felt like skateboarding was like that outlet that like I hung out with the older crowd, the older guys at the skate shop that I rode for, and they kept my head clear. They'd already been in through the trouble, so they were like keeping me out of it. That also kept me away from like my normal school friends because I was at the skate shop. So it was like this 13, 14-year-old kid is hanging out with 19 and 20 and 25-year-olds, and it just kind of like maybe forced me to like, and made me want to grow up a little quicker. So my family would eventually relocate from California to Minnesota. It was just crazy because one day my dad just took a flight to Minnesota, started driving around. He told the whole family, you know, this is what I'm gonna go do. Looked around, we didn't think anything of it. But when he came back, he said, you know, I found a place where we're gonna go live. We're not gonna live in the valley anymore. Me and my brother were just irate about it. My little brother was so young at the age, it wasn't such a big deal to him, but my older brother was about to become a senior in high school, so it's a big deal, right? I'm about to become a freshman in high school. So, you know, just starting high school and just the last year getting out. So it was like, it was a big deal for both of us. We thought we were being, our roots were being snatched away. The friends that we thought we had and all these circumstances, right? Like I thought skateboarding was gonna be my career no matter what. And my parents were just uprooting me from it and putting us in this cold state called Minnesota that we'd never been to, never seen. So I think just being uprooted from California and moving to Minnesota kind of instilled this like rebellion in me. And I thought, you know, my parents snatched everything I loved away from me. It would take me years to figure out that that wasn't the case. But at the time it was like, I just really feel like my parents took away my career and the thing that I loved the most, which was skateboarding. Now I'm in a state where it snows for 6 months and I can't skateboard outside every day. It's not the same, right? And we have to make new friends and all these other things that I worried about and was anxious about. We came during the summer, so we just kind of adjusted, made friends in the small town that we lived in. So then when we went to school, it was kind of easier to just adjust into school. We knew people. We'd already enrolled at school, got everything going. You know, it was easy. It was kind of easy to move over here. And everyone thought like, oh, these people are from California. Like, oh, they're kind of famous or something like that. Just because we lived in California, like that's how people treated it. So I had mentioned I had fallen into a little bit of trouble in my middle school years out in California. And that wouldn't really transfer to St. Charles until I really found a group of friends that I could kind of like choose this rebellious new lifestyle with, right? So these friends that I was finding in town, you know, it took like about a year and a half or so of living in St. Charles, but as the skateboarding kind of fell off because of the rebellion and living in a new state, Minnesota, with so much snow, it was like, I just wanted to find these people that I could click with. So soon it was like, okay, I'm gonna be partying and drinking and doing all these things that everybody does in high school, right? Or not everybody, but the typical high schooler experiences and experiments with. So drinking and partying and doing other things. But soon these would lead to just small little instances of trouble. And it would be like, okay, now you have a curfew ticket. My mom's picking me up at 3 in the morning from the police station because I'm a 16, 17-year-old partying and it gets busted or something. Or, you know, a minor consumption because, you know, there's liquor on the premises and everybody's drinking at the party or something like that. It just kind of fell into a spiraling effect of rebellion. But as a kid, I never thought in my head I'm gonna end up in prison. I watched movies and horror stories on television about prison. Like I never believed I would end up there or even in jail or do the things that I'd done up until that point. And you know, that group of friends that I began to hang around with, it was turned from drinking and partying to like what we would call going mobbing. So, you know, when you'd go mobbing, you'd go rob stuff. You'd go break into garages and look in the refrigerator for beer, different things like that. And before we knew it, it was turning from like innocent teenager adolescents partying to full-blown like criminal activity, burglaries and robberies and stuff like that. So it was kind of crazy, that early life leading up. And when I first got in trouble at high school in Minnesota, right? Like the first run-ins with like trouble at school was when I got expelled. And that was my very first week of sophomore year. I got expelled because me and another guy, a friend of mine at the time, had gone into the locker rooms and we were going through people's lockers and taking stuff out of it, right? Stupid things we shouldn't have been doing. And there was cameras and they ended up catching us, and you know, I just denied it. My friend denied it, I think, and then just admitted, like, whatever, okay, I'm on camera, whatever, just give me the suspension. So we both got expelled through the whole ordeal out of school. Pretty much the principal said you can either leave or you're just gonna get expelled. So we just left. And from that point, I was like, okay, I just got expelled from high school. My parents are really upset. What am I gonna do? Getting expelled my very first week of sophomore year was devastating to myself and my parents. But for me, it was like, okay, on to the next thing. What am I gonna do? So it was either I go jump into another school, try to continue to get my diploma, or get my GED, homeschool, whatever it may be, which my parents, they tried to do homeschooling, and it was like for like a week or two. My parents work full-time jobs, so it did not work, but I set up some things and I went and tested out and got my GED. So that was literally like a week or 2 weeks after I got expelled. I had gotten my GED and I passed it, which was so cool. My mom was so happy for me, but it was like, now I'm like a 16-year-old kid, just got expelled, just got his GED. What am I gonna do? And I told my parents, I'm gonna start working. My ideas of what a work, and like I told them, hey, I wanna jump into a career. Eventually I wanna move back to California, but I wanna start working and saving up money, because until I'm 18, you guys won't allow me to leave the house and live in California. So I did that, started, small little jobs at a gas station, things like that. But eventually, my rebellion and my poor choices and the crew that I was hanging around with, right, that would go mobbing, they would come around, they would stir up crap either at my place of employment. I would encourage it and end up losing my job. So it was like a normal job wasn't gonna work anyways. And I thought, okay, well, I can go mobbing, I can go rob, I can go do these things, I can go, hang out with these people that I like and actually feel like I'm progressing in life through this lifestyle, which I wasn't. I would eventually get into some trouble where I would first be brought to county jail. And these were some charges that wouldn't send me to prison, but this was like my first real trouble with running into the law. A guy that I was riding with had a pistol in the car, and it didn't have a firing pin in it, but it still, it still looked like if you pulled it out, someone, like a 380, someone would see this gun, they would panic or something, thinking, oh, what's going on? So this was sitting in the side compartment of the car, and me and this guy drove behind a building. I was gonna get out, use the restroom, not a restroom, but just go to the bathroom on the side of this building, and a cop car had seen us pull behind this building. Earlier on in the day, there had been a robbery committed. This specific car that I was in was the car that had been seen at the scene of the crime where the robbery of the other car, breaking into this car and stealing some stuff out of it. This was the car that someone had seen and reported. So this cop, when they seen the car going behind the building, waited a second and then trailed. So when this cop car pulled up, I was going to the bathroom, flashed me. It was like, hey, what are you doing? I zipped up, hopped in the seat of the car, and then that's when the cop was obviously interested on what was going on, walked up and was like, okay, what's going on, guys? I opened the door not thinking or remembering that pistol was in the side compartment of my door. And when I opened it, the cop didn't see it at first, but about 5-6 seconds into his conversation, he screams, freeze, pulls out his gun, and he's got like a gun pointed at my head from like maybe 3 feet away or something. And I'm sitting there like this, I put my hands up, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, I'm freezing, whatever. And my friend doesn't want to listen. He's like, no. He, in the sense, is trying to fight the idea of going to jail and instead getting shot by the cops. So I'm sitting across from him like, dude, I'm like, bro, put your hands on the steering wheel. And he's like, nah. And the cop has to keep yelling. He's pointing a gun like at me, through me, looking at the gun in the side compartment. And I'm like, grab it, dude. I'm like, you can grab the threat that you grab the gun, that you take it. So he grabs it, realizes it's not operable or whatever. That's after the fact, but he waits until another patrol unit comes, arrests us, puts us in the back of another squad car and takes us to the county jail. Now I'm tripping out because I don't know what's gonna go on. I don't know, this is my first time in jail. I've never ever had to deal with sitting inside the jail cell and about to face some charges. But it would be like maybe 3, 4, 5 days that I'd be sitting in the jail, and I would hear from my mom or my dad when I called and talked to them, told them I don't know what's going on, all that whole spiel of giving them not my blame. And then it would be my dad which he always said, I'm never going to bail you out if you go to jail. He ended up maybe listening to what my mom had to say, her influence upon it, and I got bailed out. So I got bailed out, but nothing had changed. I got out, even though, it was my friend's gun, that my friend at the time, it was his gun in the car, not mine. And the robbery that had occurred before that, it was me and him that had done it. But like nothing had changed. I just had some new charges that I was going to fight. And now I had just gotten out on bail and re-linked up with all this bad crew of friends that I had accumulated since, living in Minnesota this year and a half, and soon had, these people that I had soon clicked up with. So you would think that this first stay in county jail would be a wake up for me, but it wasn't. It would continue on. I would go to jail a few different times, for marijuana use and going back and forth with the actual charges of the robbery and the pistol charge and fighting them. I'd have to go back and sit in county jail a few times for my marijuana use and like lying to a judge, telling him, no, I don't think there'll be anything in my system during the court proceedings. And then, him saying, okay, we'll go take a urine analysis. And then I went and took one downstairs in the courthouse, peed dirty, come back up. And he's like, why'd you lie to me? And I'm just like, I guess I thought I wouldn't pee dirty, which is the dumbest thing you can ever do. If you think you're going to pee dirty and the judge is asking you, just let him know, because he's giving you that little avenue of opportunity to fess up, in a sense. From there, it was like me going back and forth to county jail from this, during this whole 1 year period. You would still think that would be the wake up, right? Like, okay, you spent a year in county jail during this time of just smoking marijuana, or, falling into this bad crowd and poor choices on your own behalf. Wake up. You don't want to go to prison. You've heard all this bad stuff about it. Well, me and a friend were heading to a party. He was driving that night. And we went to this party, hung out, did whatever, went to McDonald's after. It's 2 a.m. And from McDonald's, we're going to drive home to my house. Okay, we're going to drive back 20 miles and go get dropped off, go home. Well, as we're driving down a county road, this car jumps on our, behind our car, and they're trying to run us off the road. And at first, I'm a little tipsy. My friend's a little tipsy. I have some substances on me. I have marijuana and different things. And I'm telling him, just drive. This guy's probably drunk behind us. There's no use in even antagonizing this driver. Let's just drive. It is what it is. So we're going 100 miles per hour, and this guy's staying with us. And he's steady swerving, telling us pull over. So at this point, I'm a little worried, and I do have a weapon on me. I have a knife at the time. So I grabbed my knife, and I told the driver, I said, hey, pull over. We're going to see what's up. So I have my knife just in case, right? And when we pull over, everyone skirts. I hop out, and I say, hey, what's the problem, dude? And all of a sudden, somebody full-blown just run and sprint at me. This big, tattooed Mohawk guy did. That's all I've seen at the night. That's all I remember. And just comes running at me, sprinting at me, right? And swings at me, and we get into an altercation. We stumble around the car, and I have the knife in my hand at that point. And the only thing I can do is start, swinging, stabbing at him to fend myself off from him. But from that point, even after I fended him off, in my head, I thought, I need to defend myself further. Who does this guy think he is, attacking me out of nowhere? So I continue. And I continue slashing at him, stabbing him. I know that he got stabbed really, really bad during this altercation, from massive laceration from here down the back of his arm that required massive staples. He had stab wounds in the back, slices. I don't know if different ones on his arms or whatever it may be. It was intense in the sense that I felt like I was fighting for my life, but the threat was no longer there, but my adrenaline was still there, right? The threat ended for me, but the adrenaline was still pumping and telling me it's fight or flight, right? It's either fight or flight. And while I was continuing, running around the car in this altercation with this dude that I'd never met a day in my life, didn't know who he was, nothing, right? I hear, Alex, come on. And it's my friend standing outside the door telling him, come on. So I run up closer to his car to jump in to leave. And I say, no, you know what? I jump in the other guy's car. I take his keys out of the ignition, and I throw him into a cornfield, and then I take the knife that I had and I stabbed his tires. And I thought, now this dude can't go nowhere, right? Now he's not going to get away. He's not going to be a problem to me. He's not going to be a threat to me, and I'm just going to leave and get away. Like, the lesson learned, right? But that wasn't the case. Me and my friend hopped in the car and we left. We took off, and it was, 3 weeks later, an accumulation of this guy getting taken to the ICU in a helicopter, him getting out, seeing the vehicle that we were in that night at a Subway, sandwich Subway shop, calling detectives and saying, I think this is the car. Detectives pulling that car over, and then that person unraveling all the details to detectives. And that would go over a 3-week span from us leaving that scene that night and showing up at an ex-girlfriend of mine at the time. After that event, we showed up at her house, stopped there, and then I would go home from there. My friend would go home from his house. And it was just so ironic and a crazy coincidence that the ex-girlfriend that we stopped at's house after the incident, she called me the following day and said, hey, I need some water. Would you bring me over? I'm super hungover from the previous night of drinking. Could you bring me some water? So I did, brought some water over. And she says, you're never going to believe what happened last night. I said, what? She said, I got a text this morning. My cousin got stabbed. And I thought, oh my God, what are the odds? I had blood on my t-shirt. I had a baby blue polo that night. Took it off, threw it in the trash can. I was trying to clean it at first. It didn't work, so I threw it off. I had the blade still. I took the blade and I hid it by like a telephone pole, but I knew the guy who had seen me. So when he dropped me back off, I went and got it and hid it somewhere else. Just paranoid, thinking, I can't trust the dude I was with, my friend, 3 weeks later, the US Marshals and a task force of detectives would raid my parents' home. They raided my parents' home with the information from that friend, arrested me and booked me on 2 counts of attempted murder and 2 counts of assault. Now, this was huge, okay? I am 19 years old. They just raided my parents' home. I was watching my little brother while they raided my parents' home, and this is insane. This is crazy. They're telling me I'm looking at 30, 40 years maybe in prison, and it's just going to be a crazy, crazy ride for me, right? So I get booked into county jail. When I hear that door behind me, I break into tears. I just don't know. I'm wondering what my mom's thinking. I'm wondering what my dad's thinking, what my little brother's thinking, where he is. Is he in a jail? Did my dad come home to get everything was so... I thought my life was over. I thought everything was literally over from that point. It was like, if you could ever think in your head, like, okay, I'm just shutting down. I think things are going to be over. That's what it was for me. But lo and behold, I feel like my life has, I hit the lottery a lot in my life. I've had so many second chances. And through my court proceedings of an entire year, I would end up being given an attorney that would take my case pro bono, and we would fight the case all the way up, and I ended up taking a deal for 8.5 years. Well, there was some stipulations under this, and they gave me a stay of sentence. So they were like, okay, we're going to give you a chance. We're going to give you 20 years probation and 8.5 years over your head, and we're going to give you a chance to do good. We're going to put you in a work release, let you work a little bit, and then go back out to the community and see how you do. Right? Well, I thought, okay, this is going to be amazing. Like, I get a chance. Everyone thought it was insane. You were charged with attempted murder and you're not going to prison. You're getting a stay of sentence. And I think it was just because of the circumstances, the remorse I showed. I got up and I spoke when I was in the courtroom to the family. I apologized, these different things that stand out, I think, in a courtroom. It was all heartfelt, everything I meant, right? But I still wasn't ready to change. So when I got out after that stay of sentence, I had 8.5 years over my head. It wasn't more than 30 days that I was in bars, hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging around with, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, right? And it ended up leading this charge that I was sitting on, which I would end up pleading out to a first-degree assault. The attempted murders would get dismissed and another assault would get dismissed, but first-degree assault is what I was charged with. So this charge would have that 8.5 years over my head, And I continued to have these like small hiccups in the sense of my PO at the time, his name was Nate Marcoux. I think he knew that I was on the path to prison because he gave me a chance when I got caught at a bar, right? I shouldn't have been at this bar. Police came in checking people out of IDs and they recognized me. They took my ID. That following Monday, my parole officer arrested me out of my bed. I woke up to him pulling my hands around and getting handcuffs put on me, right? So I'm going to county jail again, thinking, okay, I'm gonna go to jail. I'm gonna go to prison for this first mess up. And while we're driving, I play the treatment card. I tell him, I think I have an alcohol addiction, maybe we should try this. And my probation officer at the time was just trying to keep me out and what do you need, Alex? What can I do for you? What can we do, make right? And for me, I didn't have that answer. I just wanted to get back out and do what do hood rat shit, as that kid says in the meme, like all this stuff that I was choosing was poor choices. I didn't know how to think. I didn't have the right thinking. So I'd go to treatment. It wouldn't work. I'd get back out and do these poor choices, back into involved in dealing drugs, dealing substances, robbing houses, anything and everything with bad choices, right? And eventually me, my older brother, and this guy would live at this house in Rochester, Minnesota, bad drug house. And one night, me and some people that showed up and we had this party at this house we shouldn't have been having, we got this idea to rob a house. We robbed a house for a safe, bunch of guns and everything, but we'd end up getting caught. So this would be the kicker that would send me off to prison, right? It's finally, you finally messed up. You finally got new charges, which were burglary charges for breaking into the home and the pistol charges for actually, felon in possession of a firearm. So those were my new charges. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to plead guilty. I'm just going to plead guilty because I have 8.5 years. Nothing right here will trump the amount of time I'm about to go do. So I was ready to go to prison. I pled guilty right away, told them I'm ready to go do my sentence of 8.5 years. Just send me off to prison. I got sent upstate and I got sent to St. Cloud State Prison to start off with. That was the intake. And I'll tell you this, going into prison, I don't care how tough you are, what you've been through, it's the most degrading and dehumanizing circumstance that you can go through. Being put, like cattle into showers. 100 people, go shower. One nozzle that has like 3 spurts coming off it. You're standing so close that you got this full nasty, sweaty water flying on you, right? Like prison is nasty, disgusting, uncomfortable for everybody. So it was like that for me. From St. Cloud Prison, I would get transferred to a close custody, and I went to Rush City State Prison. And I was only in St. Cloud for a few months, but going to this new prison, they call this gladiator school, right? I'm 19 years old and I'm going to gladiator school. I'm going to a new prison where you have to watch your back every second. You have to watch what's going on front of you, sides of you. You need to listen. You need to watch what you give people, watch what you take, watch what you say, all these other things that I wasn't used to. County jail's different. St. Cloud's different. When you go to a closed custody, there's people that have been there for 40 years that aren't coming home. There's people that have got life sentences that take offense to every little thing you say, or, just different circumstances for different places. When I first walked into prison at Rush City, there was 5 phones, and these 5 telephones were owned by the Bloods, the Crips, Mexican gang, GDs, and, all these phones, you couldn't even use them if you weren't in the gang. You sit down and be like, hey, this is our phone, you gotta get up. I can remember the time inside prison, inside Rush City, where this was the instance in my head where it was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. This is not me. This is not where I should be. And it was an instance where I saw 2 dudes run into a cell. There was a guy who had a sexual offense. He was a Boy Scout leader and had some super heinous bad crimes against children. These 2 dudes ran into his cell and pummeled him until his head was like a pumpkin, blood oozing, everything. He was just disfigured to the point where I didn't even recognize him like as a human being. And he came stumbling out of his cell after it happened. And all like 200 people on this prison unit, upper tier and lower tier, erupted like football, right? Like football crowd eruption of just noise, clapping, and happiness because of this guy, right? And I thought like, yeah, what this dude did is It's horrible, right? And maybe he deserved it, maybe he didn't. I'm not the judge to say that, right? But in that instance, seeing that whole circumstance, it told me this isn't where I want to be. This is a zoo. These are animals. This is not where I want to be. But it was during this point inside my prison where I seen that happen, and I would acquire a mentor, an elderly gentleman that I met in prison when I would go to the hole, go into the shoe unit where I was out 1 hour a day, stuck in my cell 23 hours a day. I met this individual who's an Italian mobster, and he just tested my brain in the sense of like, go read this book and bring it back to me. Read The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Read it and bring it back to me. I want you to tell me about it. Read this psychology textbook, education book. And he just kind of tested my knowledge, asked me what my morals are, my standards. What do you stand on? What do you believe in? And it made me expand my mind and my thinking so much, meeting this individual who I looked up to someone like him, right? A mafia figure who had all this money. But when I met him, he changed all my thinking from before. I no longer thought that was cool. I thought, man, this is where it ends up, right? He told me multiple times, you know what I would give to have one day of freedom or to go out there like you're about to go out here in a couple of years? Like, I would do anything for a chance like that. Don't mess that up. So before I left that unit, me and him had become really, really good friends, close. And he made me promise him, when you get out, go to a modeling agency, go to an acting agency, just go check it out because I just know, this will be a positive experience for you. I think when I got out, I got into a halfway house for the first 8 months, but it was me preparing like, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Do I got to get photos? How do I do this, right? So when I first got out of prison, and it was after 6 years, right? I did 6 years off an 8.5-year sentence. And during this time, this old timer told me, don't ever look at your release date as when you're getting out. You always add some time. And I thought, man, no, I'm getting out on my release date, which I did. 6 years later, I would get out and I'd go to a halfway house for 8 months. This halfway house had strict rules, no cell phones, all this other stuff, but I'd be able to go to church, go to a job, start building my life, right? So my first job was at Savers, a thrift store, and I worked in the donation part. And people would bring in these donations, and I worked there for about, a year or so. And it was during this job where people kept telling me, dude, you look like a model, you look like an actor, you look like this personality on TV or something, right? And I heard it so many times, I started to jot it on a piece of paper. And after a while of seeing this so many times, it was like I had a paper full of jots. I was like, dude, if I don't go try it, it's never gonna work. So I started telling the halfway house, can I go check this out? But it never really worked. So after the 8 months, immediately I went and seen open castings and open calls and all these other things for modeling and acting and all that. And it took me a while, but I kept hearing no. I kept hearing no so much. Eventually, one agency I went to with an open call said, hey, you have a good look. Maybe we can try this. And they tried it. I did a photo shoot with them. The very first photo shoot I did was in a international fashion magazine. I got booked with like my very first casting audition for runway show. All the people who told me no prior were willing to work with me now. They're like, yes, like very good work, let's work. And that's where my new career in the film and fashion industry blossomed from. That first open call where I got a yes. Dude, those are those struggles, right? Getting out of prison. I was told no for multiple jobs in which I showed up in a suit and the interviewer was like, man, you look overqualified. It looks good, like, until they see that felony on my background or my record. And there's all these barriers of when you're getting out of prison, get your clothes, get your food, your shelter, where you're gonna live, all these other things that you have to worry about. Prison doesn't set you up for that. They'll help assist with certain things or give resources or something, but you're an adult. They give you a $500 gate fee when you get out, $500. And anything else you've saved up on your own while being in there and send you on your own. And the halfway house for me was kind of that re-entry that some people maybe don't get from prison to society for their re-entry. But for me, I think it was good. Even though it was hell, I think that 8 months was good because after 6 years getting out on the street, who knows what I would have hopped into. I needed that structure, even though I hated it at the time. I think I needed that structure. I love what I'm doing. I've created from this fashion and film industry a platform where I can tell my story as well as others. I've created this platform, not only Alexander the Great TV as my business, my social media platforms, After the Gate podcast, help provide resources and all these things that I feel I was neglected upon my re-entry, as well as other people. I feel like creating those platforms is the least I could do in extending a hand back to those that are in my same footsteps, you know? What I've been doing, I've worked on countless feature films. So like I have credits, I have commercials under my belt, PC games that I've done trailers for, different cool things that I've rocked with. I've worked for Target, Best Buy, huge companies, tons of hair companies. They love me with how thick my hair has been. So like working with Regis, Supercuts, Great Clips. If you see my face at Great Clips, I'm pretty sure my advertisement's going around right now. You will see my face if you go into the stores, which is really, really cool. I could say anything in the sense of creating your own future. It's follow what you believe in and follow what you truly enjoy, and find the tribe that you vibe with, in a sense. You know, find those people that you click with, because not everybody is going to support what you got going on, and not everybody supports re-entry for prisoners. You know, not everybody's for it. But with that said, everybody that's watching, if you can take it into your heart and consider what it's like for individuals re-entering society, and you know, this is our community. These individuals that get out of prisons come into our communities. Do we want to welcome them with open arms and the resources that they maybe need to do good in our community and be a productive member, or, you know, shun them out, which they've gotten their whole life, and just continue the cycle of recidivism with the prison systems? You know, that's not the solution, I don't think. I hope that you've enjoyed my story. I know there was tons and tons of details that I could not touch base on and get in depth in. We'd be here all day talking about it, but you guys can drop comments below, as well as you can touch base across the social media platforms. Have not already, you guys, please be sure to smash the subscribe button below, as well as hit the bell to turn on post notifications so you can stay up to date with all the drops. All right, till next time, you guys. Peace out.